been one heck of a week, hasn't it? Donald Trump is going to be our next president. One thing this election has told us is that we are a divided nation. We see where we want this country to go, what its values are, how we want to engage the world in very, very different ways. These are not subtle shades of gray. They are very much opposites. While the majority of voting Americans prefer Trump's vision for our country, there are over 70 million whose vision of government, of America, of the world is very different than his. 48% of our electorate is not an insignificant number. While I doubt it will shock anyone here, I'm not a huge fan of our president-elect. That being said, and to be completely honest, I don't existentially care about Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. I doubt that I will meet either one of them. I do care about my next-door neighbors. I do care about my friends' in-laws. I do care about my first cousin. I do care about you. And all of them, my next-door neighbors, my friends' in-laws, my first cousin, and I'm going to guess some of you voted for former President Trump to be reelected. In fact, a third of all Santa Clara County voters voted for Trump. So statistically, 1 out of every 3 people you meet in this area, on your street, at your job, in your school, believed that he was the better choice for our country. And with us so divided, with anger and vitriol spewing from both sides, the question is, what are we to do? Neither group is fringe. The numbers tell us that. Rather, we are split, almost right down the middle. Being on opposite sides of an issue is not new to Judaism. In fact, sometimes I think that we Jews invented arguing. Our tradition elevates disagreement. In fact, much of the Talmud is a series of arguments with rabbis taking opposite approaches. One famous one by Hillel and Shammai has to do with Hanukkah. One says that we light the Hanukkah menorah the first night with 8 candles, the second night with 7, so on, decreasing light each night, just as the number of days of celebration decreases. And the other, he says that we light 1 the first night, 2 the second night, 3 the third, increasing light each night as the total joy of the holiday increases. Who won? Well, we all know how we do it today. But I promise you, in the day, each approach was fought for and argued about as vigorously and as passionately as the questions of reproductive rights and immigration today. Here's the thing. The rabbis of old, when they disagreed, they recognized that their argument, called machloket, was for a greater purpose. Their argument was for the sake of heaven, l'shem shemayim. And here is what's so remarkable. They disagreed, not about the efficacy of the immigration policy or whether or how to regulate our national health care system. No, they were arguing about something in their minds much more important. They were arguing about what God demanded us to do. And while they were on opposite ends of the arguments, what did they do? They ate at each other's tables. Their children married each other. They were friends. Thus, they didn't call one another crazy or hurl misogynistic insults. Why? Because they saw argument and disagreement for a greater purpose: to find the truth, not to demean one another, not for power, and not for self-aggrandizement. Friends, I care about my next-door neighbors. I care about my friends' in-laws. I care about my first cousin. And I care about you. I want to eat in your homes, and I want you to eat in mine, and not be afraid to talk about what's best for our country. And I want you to do the same with your Republican neighbors. To argue is good. To argue to harm or diminish is not. Something has happened within our country. I don't really know when it began, but I do know that it has reached levels that are toxic today. It was said that the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed not because the Babylonians or the Romans had the stronger armies. Rather, it was due to sinat chinam, to baseless hatred. The way to cure that hatred, so that we do not succumb as did the Jews in Jerusalem, is to learn how to argue for the sake of heaven, to learn to have a machloket l'shem shemayim, a disagreement for the sake of heaven. To quote another Rabbi Nemitoff, my daughter, we have an obligation to fight for our values, to uphold the beliefs we hold most dear, and we have to heal this country and ourselves as Jews from the divisions which seek to tear us all apart, end quote. Arguments l'shem shemayim, arguments for the sake of heaven, are ones based on policies and positions, not about another's identity or worth. Friends, it's been one heck of a week. And for all the angst and anger and words that have been traded on both sides, I urge you to hold on to this truth. Some 145 million Americans voted in the greatest display of democracy that exists in our world today. Just over half of us agree with the outcome. Just under half of us disagree. But we went to the polls and we voted, or we mailed in our ballots. And together, we made a decision. Now, let us live with that decision and together argue, but argue for the sake of heaven and for the sake of our country. Towards that end, I share with you a Facebook post you may have already read. It's attributed to Venus Williams, the tennis great. It speaks directly to those who felt pain and disillusionment and anger after the election results were announced. And here's what she wrote. You are awakening to the same country you fell asleep to, the very same country. Pull yourself together. And when you see me, Do not ask me, what do we do now? How do we get through the next 4 years? Some of my ancestors dealt with at least 400 years of this under worse conditions. Continue to do the good work. Continue to build bridges, not walls. Continue to lead with compassion. Continue the demanding work of liberation for all. Continue to dismantle broken systems, large and small. Continue to set the best example for the children. Continue to be a vessel of nourishing joy. Continue right where you are, right where you live, into your days. Do so in the name of the Creator, who expects nothing less from each of us. Not to co-opt Venus Williams' People's Truth, we too as Jews experienced 400 years of deep darkness. And yet, so our tradition teaches, during those 400 years, we continued to act with kindness and with goodness. We continued to bring light into that darkness. For many, it is a narrow bridge we are crossing over. At this very moment, it is a narrow, dark bridge. Let us not be afraid. Let us speak the truth. Let us act with justice. Let us bring light to whatever darkness we may encounter. If you would turn in your prayer books to page 339, I invite you to rise as able and join us in recognizing that we are on a narrow bridge. The secret, the essence, is for us not to be afraid. Gesher Tsar Ma'od. Why is it that